Tell me, do you feel broke? I know most people do. I mean, we all know we need money, and we never seem to feel like we have enough of it. But why is that? Do you even know what money is? You spend all your time working so hard to get this thing. Have you ever thought, what is the thing I'm actually sacrificing my entire life for in the pursuit of? Well, let's talk about that. Money is just a means to exchange value with people. But how do we do this exchange of value? We obviously don't do the barter or none of that nonsense that people tell you about. Okay, look, you exchange things that represent value. In almost all of human history, that's what we've done. Now, we've went through seashells, and we've tried crop stuff, and there was even this one really interesting island that had these giant limestone bricks, and they would have loans against them, and there's actually a really cool story where some people went out to the mainland and got a giant one and brought it back, and before they made it, I mean, they were real close, but tidal waves took them down, but they washed up ashore, said, hey, trust us, it's at the bottom of the ocean. And so people for 300 years traded against this thing, okay? We've done a lot of different things, but ultimately, fast forward a little bit, get to Europe, get to past the Crusades and all these fun times we've had. We use hard metals. We use silver. We use gold. Gold wasn't actually as used as often as people think they were. The main reason that gold is perceived as being the currency for all of human history is actually just due to the English having a tea addiction. I mean, I can't fault them too much. I may not be British, but I sure love my tea as well. The British and their tea addiction have caused massive changes in currency, as insane as that sounds, because they ended up trading almost all their silver to the Chinese just to get some of that good old tea stuff. The British and their wonderful tea addiction was so severe that they traded almost all the silver in the known world. Despite the sun never setting on the British Empire, their silver sure ran out. And so they turned to gold to back their currency with, saying, the Chinese won't know the difference. We'll give them this gold-backed currency. I mean, it's still backed by something. It's valuable. People use it. People like it. But eventually, we came to something a little more significant, something that fundamentally changed how currency operated in the world. See, prior to this event, all currency in the world that was relevant of a significant country was backed by something. It was backed by land, gold, silver, some hard, claimable asset, something of significant tangible value that no one would question. There is, in fact, value here. But then we had World War I. Those Germans, they really, really wanted to rile things up. And sure, we can argue other powers wanted to take them down, but this was the Great War, the final war, the ultimate war. Until we had a sequel not that long after. It was just too much fun not to. The problem is, the cost of that first World War ruined Germany, and it severely damaged Europe. And most of them just had claims from Germany to repair them. But before any of that could ever realistically be paid out, or anything recovered from, hardly, we decided to have a second World War. The Great World War II. And by great, I mean on a scale unimagined in human history. There was never destruction like this. Entire nations were turned to rubble. People left in droves. Immigration entered the lexicon as people massively fled their homes to wonderful places like America. And only one nation was able to stand up and claim victory after that. Sure, many survived. Many persisted and existed and changed a little bit. But only America received gold during this war. They received so much of the world's gold, they had what affected a monopoly, as well as there was no fighting on American soil. So every factory was still churning out at 100%. Everything they could produce was ramped up to levels to support the entire world, and they had all of the wealth in gold. Having a situation like this imbalanced all the currencies in all the other major nations of relevance. And so, what were the countries to do? They have nothing to back their currency. There was no value in their land that was covered in rubble and corpses. No. They needed something a little more clever. So everyone from the major nations sat down, and at the Bretton Woods Accords, they came to a decision. They were going to back all of their currencies by U.S. dollars. Because the U.S. has all the gold, the dollar is still redeemable by gold. If anything, they're over-collateralized with gold. And so if we back our currencies by the US dollar, we effectively are gold backed, just one step removed. And that's good, right? That's fine. It might be a slight amount of more transactions if people want the gold, but they can get gold for this. And this worked for a little while, until there was recovery. You see, over the decades that followed, countries like France and other European powers, they rebuilt. While they may not get credit for all the hard work they do, they sure are good at rebuilding a burnt-down nation. And boy, oh boy, did they build up. The problem is, their currency was still pegged the exact same as it had been prior when their country was rubble to the dollar. In the meantime, the dollar hadn't gotten any stronger. In fact, Uncle Sam had been spending money all over the world. In fact, he may have been spending more money than he had. You see, Uncle Sam had been buying goods from abroad and building back all these countries. The problem is, as they shifted all this production overseas, there was less in America. Their economy was not growing, not in real terms, not in net terms. They were inventing new technologies, but they were not making more things. No, they were making consumers. And while consumers may be valuable to economies, they do not in fact create them. They are a product of them. And America was becoming a consumer of the rest of the world. And as these dollars piled up in France and all other countries that we seem to buy things from endlessly, some people got to thinking, are there enough gold reserves to back these dollars? I don't know if there are. And eventually, one day, the French decided enough is enough. It's time to receive our gold. We've held on long enough. So they dispatched a few ships to America with a demand. Give us our gold. It is time. Accept your dollars back. But there was a problem. America had been printing too many dollars. They could not honor a one-to-one redemption like they had promised in years past. The $35 peg to 1 ounce of gold was no longer redeemable, not at the scale at which they had printed dollars. So what were they to do? Did they give in, cause a bank run, a gold bank run? No. President Nixon decided, we have another option. We shall suspend, temporarily, the convertibility of the dollar into gold. It seemed like a reasonable thing to do. Other countries had done it in the past. Europe had done it almost every single major country, especially the UK, or England, as they were known at the time. It had happened to them 4 or 5 times, and after a couple years, they always got back on it, so this shouldn't be a problem. They'll get back on it soon, right? Right? No. After a few years, the U.S. decided that temporary suspension shall become an indefinite suspension. We will be keeping the gold. In fact, we will be keeping all of the gold. You see, many years prior, the U.S. government had been in strain, financial strain, and they had outlawed the private holding of gold, and they had forced the sale and seizure of it from the American populace. So not only did they hold all the gold of all major European powers, they also held most of the gold that had previously circulated in the American economy. This was something they just would not give up. And so, the dollar became backed by nothing. Nothing but the threat of angering America. And this is the world we find ourselves in today. We have no backing. We have no money. We have currency. And we are told at gunpoint that it is worth our lives. Do you agree? Or is there a better way? Find out next time. Personally, I prefer getting a Lamborghini and wrapping it around a fence post, but that's just me.